more cards in your starting hand is going to become a trend that might even take over to where, in the same way that Limit was a big deal for a while and Holdem slowly kind of pushed it out, I'm beginning to suspect that the same thing is going to happen with PLO over the long run. And I'm curious to hear if you agree with that or if you think Holdem's going to stick around. Because let me say one
Well,
more thing
here I've
before.
got some great insight and an
Yeah.
amazing
Tell me.
answer to
Yeah.
that. So, Donkfish and I actually met with Caesars Entertainment, and Caesar's stance, that's an unofficial stance, but what they told us was they felt Pot Limit Omaha and 4-card variations and 5-card variations like Big O. This is the first year of a 10K bracelet event, Big O, which I'm playing in, but that Pot Limit Omaha was going to be the next wave of poker, the next poker boom. So that's coming from Caesars Entertainment's perspective.
Oh, wow.
And that was in a meeting that we had. And the reason why we had that meeting is because we were trying to set them up as, hey, we don't mind trying to be WSOP ambassadors, especially if you guys are feeling that way about Pot Limit Omaha. We kind of are the face and voice of Pot Limit Omaha, if you will. As much as we can be. I mean, obviously, Phil Gaffon and Jay Nandez, give them credit where credit is due. They're obviously much bigger than us, but we do do a lot more meetup games and traveling and stuff like that. So we're a little bit more accessible, I guess, to the general public. But yeah, so I think Pot Limit Omaha is definitely going to be the next wave of poker. I certainly do. There's a lot more. In my opinion, there's a lot more poker to be played with Pot Limit Omaha versus No Limit Holdem. And that doesn't mean I'm knocking on No Limit Holdem. Certainly, No Limit Holdem with GTO charts, it's advanced a lot. There's a lot more advanced players. It's interesting to study. I think, honestly, with the GTO stuff, it's actually a little bit more interesting for me to study because then I try studying ways to exploit it. But ultimately, I think Pot Limit Omaha, people are just going to see, yeah, this is the next wave of poker because there's a lot more variations from it as well.
Yeah, I think that's that's amazing. I hadn't heard that about Caesars, so that's really cool. I mean, that's pretty big confirmation. It's been just like a suspicion in my mind, but I guess what I'm realizing in talking with some other guys I know who are playing for a living is that they're starting to go, hey, there's some money to be made here. They're recognizing, hey, we got a lot of casual players doing this, and you sit down at just a Hold'em game, and you're like, dude, almost everybody's knitting it up. It's kind of straightforward. You kind of know where you're at. It's you're
well,
kind of
and then it gets really challenging too when you get into the mid stakes, because then you start running into the grinders for a living. Like when you start going from 2.5 to 5.10 and No Limit Hold'em, and you sit down and you look around and you're like, how is there 3 poker professionals at this table? I can't tell you how many times at the win. And first of all, I love the win. I'm not talking it at all. But I'll sit at a 2.5 while I'm waiting for a PLO. And I sit down, and to my left is Al from St. Louis that has been a pro for 20 years. I used to play with him 20 years ago. I'm like, how the hell are you doing, Al? He's like, oh my God, Josh, how are you? And then I look across the table and there's another vlogger like Ben Deach. I'm like, how is there 3 professional poker players or semi-professional? But there's basically 3 pros at this table out of 9 guys. You move over to the PLO table and you do not see that at all. You're lucky, if there's one other guy that is considered a professional like myself, the pots are going to be really big. There's going to be a lot of 3 betting. It's going to be even a juicy game with 2 pros on it where you can pick your spots against us. But it's going to be a lot more of an active game than your normal one. So,
yeah. And I think I just, as I'm observing that, I'm like, man, I don't know that So to give you a little bit of background, I got destroyed on Monday night. Last night I went out playing PLO, right? I went out last night and played Hold'em, and I'm like, hey, I got to get my mind right because I really lost my marbles last night. And I sat down and I'm like, okay, I can hand read again. I know my hand rages. Everything just like kind of smoothed out. My mind got right, had a winning session and felt good and walked away. And I was like, I can see how people can totally derail and be gambly and be like addicted to this game. And if I'm struggling with that as someone who's played for years and years, like for a person that just comes in and has like, hey, I've got $3,000. I just want to play something fun, blackjack, or hey, this game's really fun. I've got 4 cards and we're doing all this stuff. I just see how the casual player can get really.
Oh yeah. And they never have and they never have that bad of equity. That's the other part
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah,
You know, like
exactly.
when they're going up against blackjack, one, if they lose, they're losing to the house, where in PLO, sure, they might get it in with 40% equity, but at least if they lose it to another player, and they're like, at least that guy can use it a little bit more.